Hello, and welcome to Streamer Tales. I know last season we were calling this podcast something completely different, but this season it's Streamer Tales. And I got the pleasure of sitting down with a really popular streamer, Jadez. She comes online via her virtual avatar. I would call her a VTuber, but she's branching out lately into much more than VTubing and VR chat. However, that is really the nucleus of what she does, and she was very gracious enough to sit down via Twitter DM and answer some questions I had for her, just in regards to where she came from and how she got into streaming, and you know, how she feels about what she's doing and where she sees herself in the future. So sit back, strap in, because we're going to be getting into it with Jadez. Now, Jadez is a very interesting streamer to me personally. She started out as a VR chat streamer primarily, but she's branched out since then into so many things that I feel like right now she's a variety streamer, a true variety streamer in the truest sense of the word. You can hop on any given night, and she might be playing video games, she might be on VR chat, or lately she's been branching out into doing a lot of IRL stuff. I recently saw her cooking and also putting together a keyboard, and the way she does it with her trademark humor in whatever she does is absolutely infectious to me. Jadez comes off to me as a rather enigmatic streamer in that I couldn't quite quantify her for a long time. She comes off as extremely confident and very self-assured in everything she practically does, and so I wanted to really kind of dig a little deeper and get to know Jadez, the person, and that's kind of where our conversation started. So I'm just going to get into the first question that I had asked her. The first thing that was really picking my brain in regards to Jadez was actually her genesis as a streamer herself, and how she kind of came into streaming and what inspired her. And via Twitter DM, she had answered that question, and I quote, I came across streaming very randomly, actually. I described it as falling into it. I met Rafflegator in a public world and did a voice change in front of him, which really impressed him. Essentially, he asked me to join a dating show that night, and within a few hours, I was in front of 120,000 people, poorly singing Fleetwood Mac and showing my vocal change talents. That week, I decided to go live on Twitch, where all this was being recorded on other streams. And on my first stream, I had 900 viewers. From then on, I was hooked, as it was kind of obvious I knew what I was doing, surprisingly. I also pick up that perhaps she may be a little bit more talented than what she had given herself credit for, because obviously we all tune in for a reason, right? It's Jadez, come on. And as much as I admire Jadez as a streamer, I also wanted to get to know a little bit more about her personally. It's no secret, that she has been transitioning, and I personally am fully supportive of anyone who wants to do that. If you're listening right now and, and you have, that kind of inclination, I invite you to explore that in a healthy way. But I really wanted to get into it with Jadez and kind of get an idea as to where her transition began and how that came about. And when I sprung that question on her, she said, and I quote, I transitioned in 2019 starting HRT in March. I had been thinking about it all my life, but growing up in a religious household, I never saw it as a realistic goal. When I moved into an apartment with a friend at 26 after my mom had passed, I took the leap. I socially transitioned a year later, taking HRT for a full year in secret. I wanted to I wanted to see and feel results of the biological changes before I made it official to those who knew me. Domestically, my lifestyle was not received well by my family, but resoundingly accepted and supported by my close friends. I think it's very admirable for Jadez to have shared her story as far as the beginning of her transitioning in that light, and I feel like that is something that a lot of people end up experiencing when transitioning. The part that really hit home for me and for many of my friends that have successfully transitioned or are currently transitioning is, the lack of support from family, um, which I find to be very unfortunate. I feel like society hasn't quite caught up to where it needs to be to really support people who are transitioning in the way that they deserve to be supported. When you are in a body that you don't feel like you belong in, gender wise, that can be a very jarring thing. And I I found it very interesting as well that she had done HRT, hormone transition therapy for a year herself, because she wanted to get a feel for those changes and really get to know, get a taste of what it would be like to, you know, to be a woman and to take that leap. And I find that um, I find that entire answer very admirable, but also very relatable to a lot of people. In that, there is a pressure to keep things on the hush hush, not because it's not really an external pressure. It's really an internal turmoil that a lot of my friends who have gone through that process have voiced. They don't know how everyone is going to feel about it. Especially family. I have a lot of friends who coming out to their parents was one of the most difficult things, that they had ever done because they didn't know if things would be the same. Um, and and Jade's having spoken to the fact that, you know, the things, had taken on a different family dynamic. I think it's very brave of her to come out and say. And if I could take anything away from that answer on a whole, I would just like everyone, you know, to see the relatability in that. And if you are in a place where you're transitioning, just know that the feelings that you are feeling are perfectly valid. And not only are they valid, but they're echoed by many people who have transitioned before you and will transition after you. Another part of that inner turmoil, I feel, is having to prove it to yourself. That's another commonality that I find amongst my friends who have transitioned. And to me, that's kind of echoed in Jade's having done hormone therapy, basically in silence for a year. Um, she wanted to know, she wanted to really know before she really definitively took that leap, and I I commend her for it. I myself, as a straight cis male, really wanted to kind of understand a little deeper into how that comes to be. Because obviously, I can't shine too much of a light on it. I haven't walked that walk. And so I had asked Jade, when she first realized, uh, you know, that she was a woman, um, and she responded, as I quote, I realized something was up at a very, very early age. One of my first memories growing up, actually, was standing in the doorway to my mom's bathroom, staring at her clothes and her drawers of undergarments, essentially gearing up to steal some, which I did. The secrecy carried throughout my entire life. I was being told by my parents that everything of that kind of behavior was extremely sinful and wrong. I knew that if I ever came out as trans, much less gay, my parents would kick me out. As I grew older, I lived that kind of double existence. What what with what I was into sexually and how it made me feel to be who I was behind closed doors. Slowly but surely, my homosexuality began to leak outward, and eventually, after living as a gay male for a couple of years, I then came out of the trans closet. I continue to quote Jadez here. My peers didn't really know I was trans. I told very few people, actually. I did, however, confide in my grandmother at a very early age, and still have a note that I wrote at the age of 7 or 8, where I had illustrated a probability scale of if I wanted to be a girl and wear their clothing. I had written it on a scale at the 98th percentile and marked and circled it extensively. Now, this answer that Jadez had given me not only gave me a better understanding of her process, having having transitioned, but also um, also the nature of the process. Because a lot of people, you typically hear this shit from those conservative kind of people, that it's a choice, and why would you want to do that? But really, it's something that you feel, so deeply and so profoundly, that to ignore it would be to ignore, you know, essentially who you are. Um, and and again, I have so much admiration for the people who take that journey and walk that walk, and transition, because that's one of the bravest journeys you can take, um, to really unbox who you are as a human being on that fundamental of a level, and then to walk it. Um, I also found it very telling, that when she was very young, when she was a child, she had written a note to her grandmother, and she had circled in the 98th percentile, whereas she wanted to be a woman and she wanted to wear a girl's clothing. And, you know, uh, that just tells me that that typical conservative bullshit of oh, it's something you decide to do. It's something no, it's not. It's something that's deep rooted inside of you, and that you come to discover over time. Jades seemed to have been cognizant enough to have discovered that at a very young age, um, um, and a lot of people start discovering that at a very young age, but because of what they're told about it, it causes it causes more confusion, than actually having help to the person, because again, family members are not that supportive or conducive with this kind of thing. with transitioning, and they don't want to see, I mean, there are a lot of conservative parents out there that, have their vision for you and their vision as to what they want their child to become. And so the last thing they want to have is the vision that they're projecting onto you, a completely sentient, different being, having that vision altered or changed, or even shattered, if I can use that word. So, I'm really glad that Jade's shared on this level. Not only, because it tells a great story as to, um, her transition and how that came to be, but it also echoes what I've heard from so many other trans people, that this isn't something I choose. If anything, I would choose not to feel this way if I had the choice. Like if it was a matter of choice, I'd choose not to have this problem. But it's not a matter of choice. It's a deep rooted feeling, and I can imagine quite a confusing feeling, and something that does take quite a while to unbox, and to unbox fully, because um, she had written that note to her grandmother as a child, yet only in 2019 did she begin her transition. So there's a lot of inner soul searching involved in that, and there's a lot of unboxing yourself as a human being, and really wanting to share yourself, and that's where, the part where I get upset is where, someone will go up to a trans person or someone who's transitioning, let's say a family member, and will be like, "Are you sure?" And meanwhile, this person, you know, will have put like their an entire lifetime of thought into it, and for someone, to come up to them and say, "Oh, you sure this is really what you want? What you want to do?" Like of course they're sure. Like, and I just, hats off to Jades for sharing that. I really hope that it helps someone out there that she had shared, that part of her journey. I tapped just a little bit further into Jade's transition when she was on. I was curious about the precipice of when she was coming out, and how that was received. And she responded as follows, and I quote: "I was scared to come out, very much so. I knew, however, if I delayed the closet escape, something bad would happen, something irreparable and irrational, a mistake you can only make once. When I came out, I felt a radiant release, and regardless of the pushback, to put it lightly, from my father, I was happier than I had ever been." Now, this particular quote from Jade's really highlights to me the importance at this point in her life that having come out was playing, and the amount of rent that was taking up in her psyche, because uh, you know she says here that if she had delayed the escape, the closet escape, as she had put it, that something bad would happen, something irreparable and irrational, a mistake that you can only make once. And you can kind of read in between the lines there. I'm not going to make any unnecessary insinuations, but you could definitely read between the lines as to just how important it was for her to live her truth at that moment, and that when she did come out, uh, like it says here, I couldn't, like I couldn't put it any better than that she had. It was like a radiant release. It kind of gives me the feeling like fully embracing herself just gave her a great degree of freedom. Not only to pursue that further, but maybe just start to love herself for who she is, and not have to question it anymore, and to not have to deal with the ifs and what could be, but to really embrace it. Um, that it empowered her so much as a human being. Um, and I had responded back to her, just echoing that I thought it was very easy, very awesome that that she's that she started living her truth, and that I was very glad about that, genuinely. And I'd gotten into some of the a similar stigma, that a friend of mine had gotten, in regards to what she'd gotten from her family and from her father, as quoted here. And you know, um, we bantered about that a bit, and I said that it's horrific to me that someone would get pushback for wanting to be their best self, for actualizing who they are inside. And I echoed that I think society has a long way to go in that regard, and she acknowledged that, and this conversation with Jadez thus far, as I've dictated it, has given me a lot more insight than I had previously into what transitioning really is. It's not just like one moment in time. It's your entire life, building to that moment, and doing a lot of, inner searching, and having a lot of negative influence from people, but also, I mean, she mentioned that she had friends that welcomed her with open arms, and so there are people, you will find your tribe, is what I always tell people. If you look hard enough, no matter who you are, you will find your tribe. You will find people that are willing and ready and wanting, to love and embrace you. And I'm so happy that Jadez had found that in her friendships. I think that's because you have to find solace and a sanctuary somewhere when you're dealing with that fundamental of like an existential issue. You need people you can talk to, and I'm very glad that she'd found her friends online, um, a really great community, many of whom I would like I would be flattered to interview, pardon me, um, people that just welcomed her with open arms, and I'm very happy she had that peace, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people have to kind of deal with this in silence, and a lot of people some people end up making that big mistake, and it saddens me to say that I've known someone who made that big mistake. If I can read in between the lines as to what Jade was, inferring as to if she hadn't come out of the closet. I knew someone that was suffering from it so badly and getting so much blowback, and despite, how myself and a couple other friends would try to be supportive of them, they ended up taking their own life. And so that's why I feel like Jade's message, and her story is very, very important to to get out there, and I really hope that there's a take-home message there for everyone in regards to transitioning. Now, with VR chat being one of the primary things that Jadez is known for amongst the streaming community, I really wanted to get into how she came to discover VR chat and finding her tribe on there, so to speak. And the message I had posed to her in the Twitter DM was that a lot of people end up finding their tribe, so to speak, in virtual reality, in VR chat. They're humans, I have myself. Did you experience that? How much has VR chat enriched your life, and in what way? And Jadez went on to respond, and I quote, I think early on I was able to discover a newfound extrovertism about myself, and I found a lot of precious introverts to kind of be the friendship star of, if that makes sense. I think I just naturally gravitate towards people who kind of let me go off and be myself in a conversation. Before I started a streaming community, I did what anyone did and joined a few random VR chat friend discords, and met some lifelong friends there. People who are now in my community. And I kind of responded to her, basically at this point in the interview, I was kind of, I had a great sense of admiration, for what we discussed so far, and her having, kind of unboxed how, she got into VR chat and how that looked for her, and I responded, that as an introvert, that I think I know what she means, and that it's great to have an energized, flamboyant friend who understands you and is willing to lead the way, and and it also brings you out of your shell by osmosis, to have that extroverted person around you. If you're like me and you're pretty heavily introverted, that kind of friend, can really be the highlight of your day. And that extroversion that Jade is referring to, I feel like that's where I get a sense of a lot of her confidence, because the way that I hear her speak, and the way that I see her conduct herself on stream or on other people's streams. I'd seen her originally. I'd seen her on Autumn VR's stream, and I was just kind of I was really taken aback by her confidence and by her charisma, and for her to kind of be that beacon of light for the more introverted people of the extrovert, and I'd always thought of how that had benefited the introverted person, but I'd never really had gotten a perspective for how that would be of benefit to the extrovert. But I can kind of see here, like through her quote, that having people around her that were willing to just let her be her and be flamboyant and extroverted was very, very healthy and good for her. And that many of the friends she had made, through the Discord groups that many of us are familiar with. If you've ever been a part of VR chat, you've probably been in and out of several of them. That many of those people are now in her community, and I think that is a beautiful way. That brings things full circle beautifully. That people that really stuck by her, and before she was anything, you know, are now you know, are now admiring her as really having realized who she is as a talent, as a streamer, and get to see her, really thrive and relish in that. I feel like that's a beautiful story. Um, and we're going to get more into the streaming part next. And folks, before we get into the streaming portion of Jade's Genesis, as a streamer, I have my first ad read to read, and I'm very excited about it. Today's episode of Streamer Tales is brought to you by inflatablehammers.ca. Folks, have you ever wanted a hammer that's totally useless and akin to a balloon? Something that if you were to whack a nail with it, the nail would win? Then you need to head on over to inflatablehammers.ca, where you can find hammers that you can blow up with your own lips of every shape, size, and color. And right now, they have a sale on their premium hammer called the Omega Hammer. It's like 5 hammers in one. You really have to go see for yourself to check it out. So head on over. If you ever wanted the most useless thing you're ever going to buy in your entire life, please head on over to inflatablehammers.ca. And that ad read was completely fake. Someone please sponsor me. Now, in this next portion of the interview, I really was curious to get to know how streaming had affected Jadez personally, and how having that dynamic and having her audience supporting her and cheering her on has affected her both, in a personal sense and in a professional dynamic. And I put the question to her like this. I had asked, as far as streaming is concerned, how did that dynamic affect your life? Fostering a community, creating content, and meeting and befriending others who love to create. How did that affect you, personally and professionally? Has it given you a sense of purpose or direction? If so, how? And Jadez responded, saying, and I quote, "Streaming has indeed changed the entire course of my life. I feel completely lost and underutilized in ways I can't fathom anymore. I have so many outlets to let my creative juices flow, and it's really all I've ever wanted. Creating a community has been one of the highest joys of the entire process, and really does wonders to give a sense of personal affectation on those closest to me. It's nice to have. Having streamed now for about 2 years, which is crazy to think about, I've learned so tremendously much in that time about myself, how I affect people positively, and how others affect me. It's a perpetual feedback loop where I can immediately be told if I'm doing something right or wrong. Streaming is now my purpose, and my job is being happy. Sounds easy enough, right? I am very happy for Jadez right now. Having heard that, as a content creator myself, I've been a YouTuber for, like since the site opened, essentially. Like 15 years now. I can understand that, and but being a streamer is a different animal than being a YouTuber, and I really think that streaming on Twitch, this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like it's the next evolution of what YouTube, uh, what we really wanted it to be for content creation, and that perpetual feedback loop she was talking about, which you do get in real time. Um, your chat's going to tell you if they do or don't like something, and they're going to tell you immediately whether you want to hear it or not. Believe me, I'm a part of many of these communities. I know, um, and so that kind of tells me that she's listening to her audience, and she's always kind of taking stock as far as gauging, where she's at and where she wants to go and what she wants to add to the stream or take from the stream. Um, and something that really stands out to me is that the part that seems to me to have brought her the most joy was, having cultivated that community. I feel like, that her community is very important to her, and Jades is very important to her community as well. And I am one person in that community. Um, I, uh, I love how she has an outlet, for her creative juices, because as an artist myself, it's almost like if you don't have that outlet, if you don't have that way to create art, or content, whatever you want to call it, but if you don't have that way to create, you almost wither on the vine, so to speak. You don't really get to fully actualize, who you are as a human being, and put what you have out there, which is, for an artist, is like one of the most fulfilling things you can be doing. Just speaking on my own personal experience as both, an author and a YouTuber, it's absolutely one of the most wonderful feelings in the world to be able to put art out there for myself personally. So I can relate to a lot of what Jade's saying, in regards to, just how positively that aspect has affected her. I like how it brought her a sense of purpose at a time where she felt, lost and underutilized. Um, and it seems to have boosted her confidence. Whether she had said it or not, in this interview, um, certainly how can it not? If previously, you felt like your creative input was, undesired and unwanted, and now Jades is in a place where it is, very much desired and wanted by, her community and myself. Uh, that has to feel like one of the greatest things in the world, and that coupled together with community, and creating a sense of community, and having, because in a way, uh, your community is a really big part of your tribe. Like, eh, it's, people who are there to see you. I mean, you get the trolls. Everyone gets the trolls. I've gotten my fair share over the last 15 years, and I certainly will get more myself. But I find on Twitch that the majority of people who are watching your stuff are the people who want to be there. And I feel that's one of the things that I will sing from the rooftops about Twitch, is that, that cultural dynamic of Twitch, um, that you just don't see on YouTube. Like if I were to compare a YouTube, uh, comment section to a Twitch chat, it's a completely different animal. In a YouTube comment section, you'll have like shit post after shit post, and 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 maybe some supportive stuff, but in a Twitch chat, full of people who just want to see their favorite streamer stream, there's a lot of love. There's a lot of genuine love that's being both sent and reciprocated, by the streamer, and to and from, from the audience to the streamer, and from the streamer to the audience. It's like playing catch with some vibes, and that's the big difference, and that's why um, I really think I get it as far as why that's very important to her. The community aspect, the feedback aspect from her community, and showing a willingness to want to make things that her community would enjoy. Um, this interview tells me that she's actively listening to her community. Some of you who may be listening, uh, and you know, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that this entire story of Jade's, from little wee um, child Jade's, all the way up to her now realizing, you know, the most positive, best version of herself that she's realized to this day. I find it to be a tremendous, tremendous success story on so many levels. That at this point in the interview, like I was honored and taken aback by like everything she was sharing with me, uh, because she literally bore her soul right in front of me, and I seeing seeing that journey in its entirety, both personally and professionally, was very humbling and very endearing, you know, to hear about. But we do have one more question that I posed to Jades before we had run out of time. Now, the last question that I posed to Jades was something that it was kind of a selfish question because I was personally really interested in this. And if you're a member of her community, I'm sure that you would be equally as interested in this. And I simply asked, what goals do you have for the future of your stream? And Jade had responded, as I quote, I would like to do more IRL stuff. Not necessarily my face or her full body, but stuff I can create with my hands. The cooking streams have really opened up my potential for more IRL content, and I definitely like to find more advents of said creativity that I like, hopefully on the same level as cooking. Beyond that, every day is a blank slate, and every week is a blur. I typically have no plan, which usually helps instead of hurts. And that is where Jades and I had mutually run out of time. She's a very, very busy woman, and she's, always doing her best to, create things for her community, and I certainly respect that, and I'm so grateful that she gave me the amount of time that she did. Um, I feel like there's a lot of takeaway here. Um, First of all, I want to say I'm really excited for the IRL content, the real life content. As I mentioned the other night, I saw her putting together a keyboard, and I don't know if she knew who I was because my Twitter handle isn't the same as my Twitch username, but I was kind of like, oh, you're putting the key in the wrong place. And shit. And we were the chat, myself and chat and Jadez were just having fun riffing off of each other. So we were trying to put together, she was trying to put together this expensive keyboard, and I really that was really one of my favorite Jadez streams, which may seem odd. As I originally started watching her uh, doing VR content. First alongside Autumn VR, and then just like whenever she would pop into a stream. But then I kind of followed her over to her own stream, and I got really into the gaming and the VR chat content. Uh, but this new in real life IRL content is really great because um, it feels a lot more personal to me. She's for only showing her hands, she emotes with them very well, and we just have a great time. The chat and herself, no matter what she's doing, in real life stream, whether she's cooking or putting together that keyboard, which had a bunch of, for some reason, Chinese keys that none of us knew what they were for. But yeah, it was a good time. So that's why I'm really looking forward to more of the in real life streams. I'm looking forward to everything in general with Jadez, and I don't want to meander on too much longer here. But I do want to say that again, Jadez, I'm very, very honored that you had shared your story with me, not just in regards to VR chat, uh, not just in regards to streaming, but in regards to, your transition and how things were for you in that regard, from the age of a child up until now, and the hurdles that you leaped over um, along the way. And I feel like there is a tremendous, tremendous message for anyone who's transitioning to take home from your words. And I hope that I've done some justice in conveying them to the best of my ability. And so, folks, that has been the first episode of the second season of Streamer Tales. I was, again, over the moon to get to talk to Jadez. She is such a kind person to interact with. You just get a very patient and kind energy from her. And I wish her so much success in everything she does in the future, both personally and professionally. And I'm going to be there in chat watching, rooting and hoping that it happens. And I hope that anyone else listening will be too. Because this Jadez is definitely worth checking out. If you like VR chat, which, let's face it, most of us do, if you like gaming, if you like cooking, if you like food in general, if you like hands, if you like, like, in IRL content, there's something for you on there. And behind all of that is a very, very extroverted, confident personality that is just so funny. I cannot, if you've never watched Jadez before, her sense of comedy and it's just totally infectious, and it just you're hooked right away. Because not only is she funny, but she conveys it with such confidence that you just can't help but like grab on and like go along for the ride and pray for dear life that you don't fall off. because she goes at a million miles a minute, and I just love every minute of it. And I hope that anyone who hasn't checked out the stream will check it out. I will be posting a link to her stream and her socials in the YouTube description. I will also be putting them in the Spotify description as well. And you can check her out on Twitch by typing in Jadez. That is Jadez, and just look for a picture of a pretty anime girl. I believe that's a fan art that she had done, though I can't confirm that. But anyway, I highly encourage you to check her out. She's absolutely fantastic. You will fall in love with the kind of content she creates, no matter what you enjoy, because there's something for everyone there, including a very kind and caring person behind it. And I feel like in a stream, in any form of content creation, that's the most important part. To be interacting with someone like that. So anyway, that's been episode 1 of Streamer Tales, and I hope to see y'all back here again real soon. And again, don't forget to check Jadez out. That's all for now, folks. Take care. Before I go, I would like to encourage anyone, who has any remarks about Jadez or their experience watching Jadez and how it made them feel, or how Jadez may have helped you personally. Feel free to leave it in the YouTube comment section below. I'm doing my best through this podcast to create a very open and constructive, accepting community. So with any of the topics that we had touched on, if something had struck a nerve with you, please feel free to talk about it. Don't feel obligated, but if you feel like you need to get something off your chest, please do feel free, and leave me some of your favorite Jade memories. I'd been talking about the keyboard for half the podcast, so I want to hear some of your favorite Jade's memories.